Okay, let us start. This is the second part, continue of Limitation Act. So then, in the first part, we are discussing 19 9 sections, provided that where letters administration to the state state of the estate of the creditor have been granted to his debtor to running the period of the limitation for suit recovering debt shall be suspended by the administration continues. The continuous running times of where one's time has begun to run, no subsequent disability or inability to institute a suit or make an application stop, provided that where letters of administration to the estate of the creditor have been granted to the debtor to the running of the periods for suits recovering debt shall be suspended by the administration continue. Then section 10, the suit of the against trustee and their representative, notwithstanding anything content in the foregoing foregoing provision of this act, it means provision of this act, no suit against the person who property has become vested, no suit no suit against person in whom property has become vested in trust for the any specific person or against his legal representatives or assigns not being assigned for the valuable consideration for the purpose of the following in his there and such property for the proceeds thereof or for any account of such property or proceeds shall be bear by legal time. Okay, explanation for the purpose of this sections. Any property compromise in Hindu, Muslim, or Buddhist religious or charitable endowment shall be deemed to be property vested in trust for the specific purpose, and the manager of property shall be deemed to be trustee thereof. This is a suit of against trustee their representative. Suit of next section 11, suit of contracts entered into outside of the territories to which the act of extend. Suits institute in the territories which this act extend on contract entered into the state of Jammu and Kashmir or foreign countries shall be subject to the rules of limitations contained in this act. No rule limitation for state of Kashmir foreign country shall be defense to suit institute the shared territory or contract entered into the state on a foreign country unless second 11 का A, the rule has extinguished the contract and the parties were domiciled in the state in the foreign country during the period of prescribed such rule. Then start part 3. Part 3 is called consumption of period of limitation. Exclusion time of the legal proceeding. In computing the period of limitation for any suit, appeals or application, the day from which such period is to be reckoned shall be excluded. In seconds 12 ka 2, in computing the period of limitation, an application for leave or appeal or for the revision for review judgment, the day which the judgment complaint was pronounced and the time of requires obtaining a copy of degrees, sentence or order appeal from the sought to be revised or reviewed shall be excluded. It is say about exclusion type legal proceeding where a degree or order is appealed from the sought to be revised or reviewed, or where an application is made for leave appeal from the decree or order, the time requesting for obtaining of copy judgment shall be also excluded. In the fourth subclause 4, section 12 and subclause 4, in computing the period of limitation for application set aside a award, the time requesting for the obtaining copy the award shall be excluded. Excluded. Then explanation in computing under this sections the time requesting obtaining copy of degree copy therefore of is made shall not be excluded. In computing, in these sections, the time requesting for the obtaining copy of a degree or order an order any time taken by the code prepared degree and order before an application for a copy thereof is made shall not be excluded. Section 13 what says exclusion of time in case where a leave to sue or appeal as a proper paper uh, is applied for and computing the mm, in computing in computing in computing applied for in a computing the period of limitation prescribed suit or appeal in a case where an application for the leave to sue appeal or the pauper has been made the rejected. The time during which the applicant has been prosecuting in good faith is his application for such leave shall be excluded, and the court may, on the payment of the court fees prescribed, such a suit appeal treat the suit of appeal as having the same force and effect as if the court fees had been paid in the first instance. Section 14 says about Section 14 exclusion of time of proceeding bona fide in the code of without jurisdiction in computing period of limitation for any suit or the time during which the plaintiff has been prosecuting with due diligence another in computing prosecuting with the due diligence another civil proceeding whether in a court of first instance or appeal or revision against the defendant shall be excluded where the proceedings related to the same matter in the issue and is prosecuted in good faith in the court of which from defected jurisdiction other cause of take like nature is unable to the inherent. Section 14 का 2 in computing in the period of limitation for any application the time during which the application has been prosecuting with due diligence another civil proceeding, whether in a court of first instance or appeals revisions against the same party of the same relief, shall be excluded, where such proceeding is a prosecuted in good faith in the court, which from defect of jurisdiction, other cause of the like nature is unable to entertain it. Notwithstanding 14.3 subclause sections 14 subclause 3c says anything contained in the rule of order 23 of the Code of Civil Procedure Code 9055 of 9 of 18.8 the provision subsections L shall apply in the relation fresh suit institute or permission granted by the court under rule of the order where such permission is granted of the ground that first suit must failed by the reason of defect in the jurisdictions of the court of other cause like nature. Explanation for the purpose of this section and excluding time during which a former civil proceeding was pending, the day on which that proceeding was instituted, and the day on which it indeed shall was the counted. Seconds explanations. One explanation B. A plaintiff or an applicant reciting an appeal shall be deemed to be prosecuting or proceeding. Section C, sub explanation C, misjoinder of parties or cause of the action shall be deemed to be a cause of like nature with the defect of jurisdictions. Then starts the words on which the degree or orders is founded omitted by the Act of 46 of 1999. Next, action, Section 15 exclusion of the time of certain cases. In conjunctions, the period of limitation and suit or application for the execution of degree, the institution or execution of which has been stayed by injunction or order, the time the continues of the injunction or order, the day on which it was issued or made, and the day on which it was withdrawn shall be executed. The exclusion of time in certain cases is a time given in the certain cases, exclusion of time in certain cases, section 15 section 15 1 and 2 subclause 2, in computing the period of limitation for any suit of which notice has been given or for which the previous consent and section of the government or any other authority in required in accordance with the requested requirement of any law or the time being the force, the period such notice as the case may be, the time required for the obtaining such consent or sanctions shall be included. Explanation is to say that in excluding the time required for obtaining the consent of the section of the government or any other authority, the date on which the application was made, the obtaining the consent or sanction or and the date of receipt of the order of government or other authority shall both be continued. Section 3 section 15 subclause 3, and computing limitation of any suit of the application, a degree of any receiver or interim receiver appointed in proceeding for the jurisdictions of person as insolvent or by the any liquidator or provisional liquidator appointed in the proceeding for the winding up of company, the period beginning with the date of institution of such proceeding and ending with the expiry of 3 months from the date of appointment. The expiry of 3 months of or appointment, ending of the date of expiry of 3 months from the date of appointment, such as the receiver, liquidator as the case may be excluded. Section 15 subclause 4, in computing the period of limitation. Computing of the period of limitation is a say that computing of the period of limitation for the suit of possession by the purchaser at the sale in execution of the degree, the time during which a proceeding to set aside sale has been prosecuted shall be excluded. Section 5 subclause 5, in computing the period of limitation for any suit of the time during which the dependent has been absent from India and from the territories outside India under the administration of the central government shall be excluded. Sections Section 16 start effect of death on or before the accrual of the right of sue. The where a person who would, if he were living, have a right to institute or suit or make a application dies before the right accrues, or where a right institute or suit or make a application accrues only the death of the person, the period of limitation shall be computed from the time when there is a legal representative the deceased capable of institution such as instituting instituting such suit or making such application, where a person against whom, if he were living, a right of the institute a suit or make application would have accrued dies before the right accrues, or where a right of institute a suit or make an application against any person accrues on the death of such person is a period limitation shall be computed from the time when here there is a legal representative of deceased against whom the plaintiff by the institute of application is a effect of the death before the equal rights of sue. Next, nothing subsection or subsection 2 applies to suit enforce right of preemptions preemptions or the suit for the possession of the immovable property of heredity of a effect of fraud or mistakes called 17 sections. The where sections of clause start one where in the case of suit application or for which a period of limitation is prescribed by this act. The suit of application is based upon the fraud defendant, respondent, his or his agent, or the knowledge of the right or title on which a suit application is founded is cancelled by the fraud of any such person as aforesaid. Section C 17C the suit or application is for relief from the consequences of a mistake. Effect of fraud or mistake is 17 D where any documents necessary to establish the right of the plaintiff. तो इस तरीके से we are discussing about the all effects of fraud or mistakes and plaintiff is the applicant has been the fraudulently concealed from him. So we are discussing and we are reading the Limitation Act 1963 is enacted in the 5 October. Okay, so let's continue. The period of the limitation shall not begin in the run until the plaintiff or applicant has discovered the fraud or the mistake or could, with reasonable diligence, have discovered it, or in the case of concealed documents, until the plaintiff or the applicant first had the means of producing the concealed documents and completing the productions. Okay, so it called this provided that nothing in this sections shall enable any suit be instituted application to be made to recover or enforce any charge against or set aside any transaction affecting any property. Okay, then in the case of fraud has been purchased for valuable consideration, person who was not a party to the fraud and did not at, at the time of the purchase know or have reason to believe that any fraud had been committed. In the case of mistake has been purchased valuable considerations subsequently in the transaction in which the mistake was made by a person who did not know or have reason to believe that the mistake had been made. Third, in the case of concealed document has been purchased or valuable consideration by a person who was not a party concealment concealment and did not at the time of purchase know or have reason to believe that the document had been cancelled. It's so about all the cancellation of so about the effect of the fraud of mistake. And seconds, where a judgment or debitor has by fraud of force fraud or force prevented the execution of a degree or order within the period of limitation, the court may, on the application of judgment creditor made after the expiry of the said period, extend the period of the execution of the degree or order, provided that such application is made within 1 year from the date of discovery of the fraud or the cessation of force or the case may be. Effect of acknowledgement in writing, where before the expiration of the prescribed period for or for a suit application is the respect of any property right. An acknowledgement of liability in a respect of such property or right has been made in the writing signed by the party against whom such a property or right or claimed or by any person through whom the drives has little his little liability or stress period limitation shall be computing from the time when the acknowledgement was so signed. It's also about the effect of the acknowledgement of writing. Acknowledgement in writing. Okay, where the writings containing the acknowledgement is undated, oral evidence may be given of the time when it was signed by but subject the provision of Indian Evidence Act 1872, one of 1872, oral evidence of its content shall not be received. Example, explanation for the purpose of this section. An acknowledgement may be sufficient though it omits to specify the exact nature of the property of right or avers that the time of the payment, delivery, performance, or enjoyment has not yet come or is accompanied by the refusal to pay, deliver, perform, or permit to enjoy, or coupled with a claims to set off, or addressed to a person other than a person entitled to the property of right. It's a about acknowledgement of the writing. Property of right. The word signed means the signed either personally or by an agent duly authorized in this behalf. And Section C is 18 to subsection C. An application of the execution or degree or order shall not be deemed to be application in respect of property of right. Then start section 19. Section 19 effect of payment of account debt or interest or legacy. Where payment or an account of the debt of interest on legacy is made before the expiration of prescribed period by the person liable to the pay the debt of legacy or by his agent duly authorized in this behalf. A phrase period of limitation shall be the compounded from the time when the payment was made, provided that, save in the case of payment of interest made before the 1st January 1928, an acknowledgement of the payment appears in the handwriting of or in writing signed by the persons making the payment. Okay, then it is start explanation of the purpose where mortgage land is the position of the mortgage, the receipt of rent or produce such land shall be deemed to be payment. Debt means debt does not include money payable under a decree or order or code. Debt means this is a debt. 19 का subclause B debt. Okay, explanation. Effect: debt does not include money payable under a decree or order of a court. Effect of acknowledgement of payment of another person. Section 20. Effect of acknowledgement or payment of another person. The expression agent, the expression of agent, the expression of agent duly authorized this self in this section 18 and 19 shall, in the case of person under disabilities, include his lawful guardian, committee or manager, or an agent duly authorized by such guardian, committee or manager to sign to acknowledgement to the payment. Second, nothing in the said section renders one of several joint contractor partners, executors, or mortgage chargeable by the reason only of written acknowledgement signed or payment by the or by the agent or any other than. For the purpose of the said sections, an acknowledgement signed or payment made in respect any liabilities by or by the duly authorized agent of any limited owner of property who is governed by Hindu law shall be valid acknowledgement of payment, as the case may be against a revisioner uh, suc- succeeding in the to such liability. Section 20 subclause B, where a liability has been incurred, incurred by or on behalf of a Hindu individual and Hindu undivided family as such, an acknowledgement of payment by the duly authorized agent of the manager of the family for the time being shall be deemed to have been made on behalf of the whole family. Section 21, effect of substituting or adding new plaintiff for defendant. Section 121, Section 21 1 subclause 1, where after instituting of the suit, a new plaintiff or defendant is substituted or added, the suit shall, as a regards him, be deemed to be have been instituted when he was so made party, provided provided that where the court is satisfied that omission to include a new plaintiff or defendant was due to mistake made in good faith, it may direct that the suit or as regards such plaintiff or defendants shall be deemed to have been instituted on any clear earlier date. No, nothing in subsection shall apply to a case where a party is added or substituted owing to assignment or devolution violation of any interest during the pendency of the suit, or where a plaintiff is made a defendant or defendant is made a plaintiff. Section 22 is called breach continuing breaches and torts. In this section 22, in the case continuing breach of contracts or in the case of continuing torts, phrase period of limitation begin to run at every moment of the time during which the breach of torts as the case may be continued. Very important section, it come in the examination every time Delhi judiciary and otherwise and other exam in the judiciary services. Section 23 is a say suit of the compensation for act of actionable without special damage. In the case of suit for compensation for an act which does not give rise to cause of action unless some specific injury actually result therefore, the period limitation shall be compounded from the time when the injury result. Okay, then start next section 24, computation of the time of mentioned in the instrument. All instruments shall for the purpose of this act be deemed to be made with reference to the Gorgian calendar. In the reference to the Gregorian Gorgian, not Gregorian calendar, it start January to it start January to December is called Gregorian calendar. Okay, computing time of the mentioned instrument. All instruments shall be the purpose of this act deemed to be made with the reference of the Gregorian calendar. Section 24. It's a make by the Julius Caesar. It's not important. Next, section 25. Acquisition and part 4. Acquisition of ownership by the possession. Acquisition of assessment by the prescription where the access and use light or air to end for any building. Acquisition of assessment by the prescription where the access the use of light is important, air to end for any building have been peace peaceably enjoyed therewith, as in assessment not easement is a easement and as of right without interruptions and for 20 years and where any way or water course of or use of the any water or any other easement, whether affirmative or negative, has been peaceably and openly enjoyed by the person claiming title thereto as an easement, and as right without interruptions of and for 20 years. The right such success of the right of light or air way become water course cause of the barter or the ease of shall be absolute. Ease of shall be absolute. Ease of ease of said of the 20 years shall be taken to be period of the ending without 2 years next before the institution of the suit where the claim to which such period relates is constant. Next, section 25(3), where the property over the which the right is claimed under the section belong to the government. The subsection shall be read the words 20 years words 30 years were substituted. This is called about the acquisitions of easement by the prescriptions. Next section explanation is a say that explanation nothing in the interruption with the meaning of the section useless unless where there is an actual discontinuance of the position enjoyment by the reason of obstruction by the act of the some person that the claimed and used unless the such obstruction is submitted to the rejected accused in for 1 year after the claimant has notice thereof and the person making authorized the same to be made. Next section is called exclusion in favor of reversioner or servant of tenement, where any land water upon over or from which any easement has been enjoyed or derived has been held under by or virtue of any interest for life or in terms of year exceeding 3 years for the granting therefore the time of the enjoyment of the such easement during the continuance of such interest terms shall be included in the consumption of the period 20 years in the case the claim is within 3 years next after determination of the such interest or terms raised by the person earned and such determination to the said land or barter. Next section 27 is the extinguishment of right of property at the determination of the period hereby limited to any person for instituting a suit of possession of any property, his right to such property shall be extinguished. Next section is a part fifth miscellaneous. Section 28 amendment of certain act repealed by the repealing and amending act 1974 56 of 1974 second the first schedule WEW.E.F 2012-1974. Savings is in 29. Nothing in this act shall affect section 25 of Indian Contract Act is a say about 29. Where any special local prescribed any suit, appeal, or application period of limitation different from the period prescribed by the schedule, the provision of section 3 shall apply as such as period where the period of prescribed by the schedule and for the purpose of the determining any period of the limitation prescribed for any suit, appeal, or application by any special local laws provisions contained in section 4 to 24 inclusive shall apply only in so far as and the extent to which they are not expressly excluded by such period or local laws. Then, save as otherwise provided in any law for the time being force with respect to marriage and the divorce. Nothing in this act shall apply to any suit or other proceeding under any such law. So this is say that Section 25 and 26 and definition of easement of in Section 2 shall not apply cases arising in the territories to which the Indian Easement Act 1882 5 or 1882 may for the time of being extended. Section 30 provision. Section 30 was say and saving and provision. 30 provision for suit etc. for which the prescribed period is shorter than the period of the prescribed by the Indian Limitation Act 908. Notwithstanding anything content. This is a maybe is wrong. Limitation Act is an yeah maybe this in the civil procedure code and notwithstanding anything contained in this act, India the any suit for the which the period of limitation is shorter than the period of limitation prescribed by the Indian Limitation Act 908 9 of the 908 may be instituted within a period of the 70 years next after the commencement of this act within the period prescribed for such suit by the Indian Limitation Act 9089 of 908 whichever period expressed earlier, provided that if in respect of any such suit the said period of 7 years expires earlier than the period of limitation prescribed after, therefore under the Indian Limitation Act 90 and the period of 7 years together with so much the period of limitation respect of such suit. Okay, under the Indian Limitation Act 908 of has already expired before the commencement of the this act is shorter than the period of the prescribed for such suit under this act, then the suit may be instituted within the period of the limitation prescribed thereof under this act. Any appeal or application for this period of limitation is shorter than the period of the limitation prescribed by the Indian Limitation Act 908 may be preferred or made within a period 90 days next after the commencement of this act within the period of prescribed such appeal application by the Indian limitation or whichever period has expired earlier. Next provision as to beard or pending suit. Nothing in cell 31 section subclause A enable any suit or appeal or application to be instituted, preferred or made for which the period or limitation prescribed by the Indian Limitation Act 908 of the expired before the commencement of this act. Effect any suit, appeal, application instituted, preferred or made before and pending at such as commencement. 32 repealed by the Repealing and Amendment Act 1974. This is a schedule for division suits and the schedule's periods of limitation is for the balance description suits and period of limitation time for which periods begin to run. This is the schedule sections 2J and 3. For the balance of due and mutual open the current account where there have been reciprocal demands between the periods, there will be 3 years. The close of the years in which the last item admitted or proved in the interned in the account of such year is a computed year to be computed in the account is a 3 years. Against a factor for an account 3 years when the account is during the continue of the agency deemed and it comes in the GLO exam. Then when this section is came in the GLO exams in last 2 and 3 days before 3 years when the account is during against a factor for an account during the continue of the agency demand the refusing of where no such demand is made when the agency terminate by the principal against his agent for the movable property received by the latter and not accounted for 3 years when the account is during the continue of the agency demand and refused or where no such demand is made when the agency is a terminate. Sections is a table number 4. Other suits by the principal against agent or negligent misconduct 3 years. When the negligent or misconduct become on the plaintiff is a 3 year. For an account and the share of this profit and dissolves partnership, 3 year the date of the dissolutions. Part second suits relating to contracts. For Siemens wages, 3 year the end the Boise during which the wages of the earned. Seven for wages in the case of any other persons, 3 years when the wages accurate due, and 8 for the price of the food or drink sold by the keeper or hotel and taverns or loading house, 3 years when the food or drink is delivered. For the price of loading, for the price of loading, 3 years is a period of time. 3 years period of limitation. 3 years time for which period begins to run. Description suits. There is a three tables and terms. Period of description of suit. Description of suit. Second is period of limitation. Third is the time from which periods begin to run. So then we are discussing nine point against period the price loading 3 years when the period price becomes payable. Against carrier of the compensation for the losing injuring goods 3 years when the loss or injuries occurs. Against carrier of the compensation for non-delivery or delay in the delivering goods 3 years when the goods are to be delivered. For the higher animal For the higher animals, vehicles, boats, or household furniture 3 years when the hire becomes payable. Next, for the balance of money advanced in payment of good to be delivered, 3 years when the goods out to be delivered. Next, for the price of the goods sold and delivered, where the no fixed period of credit is agreed, 3 years the date of delivery of the goods. Next, for the price of the goods and sold and delivered for the period paid of after the expiry or next period of credit, 3 years when the period of credits expire. Next we go 16 points. For the price of the goods sold and delivered to be paid for by bill exchange, no such bill being given, 3 years when the period of purpose bill elapses. Next, for the price of the tries growing crops sold by the plaintiff to the defendant where no fixed price credit is agreed upon, 3 years the date of sale. Next, for price of the work done by the plaintiff time has a fixed payment of 3 years when the work is done. Next, for money payable for money lent, 3 years when the loan is made. Like suits, when the lender has given the check of the money, is a 3 year time limitation period. When the check is paid, then it start. For money lent under the agreement that shall be payable on the demand, 3 years when the loan is made. For money deposit under an agreement that is shall be payable on demand, including the money of the customer in the hands of the banker as payable, 3 years when the demand is made. Next 23, for money payable to the plaintiff for the money paid for the defendant, 3 years limitation period when the money is paid. Okay, for the money payable for the defendant to the plaintiff for the money received by the defendant for the plaintiff's use, 3 years limitation period when the money is received. For money payable for interest upon money due from the defendant plaintiff, 3 years when the interest become the due. Next step, for the money payable to the plaintiff for money found the due from the defendant to the plaintiff in account states between them, 3 years when the accounts are states in the writing signed by the defendant or is a agent duly authorized in this behalf unless where the debt is by the simultaneous agreement in writing signed as the aforesaid made the payable. Next up, for the compensation for the breach of a promise to the anything at the specified time or upon the happening of the special contingency, 3 years time of period when the time specified arrive when the contingency happens. Next, on single bond where a day is a specified payment, 3 year limitation time of period. On single bond where no such day is specified, 3 years, the date of executing of the bond. Next, on bond subject to conditions, 3 years time limitation periods, the condition is broken. Next, on bill of exchange, promissory notes payable at fix the time after date, 3 years when the bill or note feels due. On bill of exchange payable at the site or after site but not at a fixed time, 3 years limitation period when the bill is presented. On bill of exchange accepted payable at a particular places, 3 years period limitation time when start when the bill is presented at the place. On a bill exchange of promissory notes payable at the fixed time after citer of after demand is a time of periods, 3 years when the fixed time expires. On bill of exchange, promissory notes payable demands and not accompanied by the any writing restraint, restraining or postponing the right to sue. Limitation period is 3 years. And then when will be start? The date of the bill is the date of the bill or note. Next, on promissory note or bond payable by the installment, limitation of period 3 years. The expiration when it start, the expiration of the first term's payment as the part of the payable, and for the other parts the expiration of the respective terms of payments. Next, on the promissory note and the bond of the payable by the installment which provide that default be made in payment of the one or more installment, the whole shall be due 3 years period of time when the default is made by unless where the payee or obligee waive benefit of the provision on then and then when fresh default is made and in respect of which there is no such waiver. Next, on promissory note given by the maker to the third person to be delivered to the payee after the certain event should happen. The time of period 3 years. The date of the delivery of the payee. Next, on the dishonored foreign bill where protest has been made for notice given 3 years. When the notice is given next by the payee against the drawer of the bill of exchange which has been dishonest by the non-acceptance 3 years. The date of the refusal to accept. Next, by the acceptor of an accommodation bill against the drawer 3 years when the acceptors pay the amount of the bill. Next, by the surety against the principal's debitor 3 years when the surety pays the creditor. Next, by the surety against co-surety 3 years when the surety pay anything in excess by his own share. Next, one policy of the insurance when the sum of insurance insured is payable after proof of the death has been given to the received by the insurers 3 years. The date when it is start, the date of the death of the deceased or where the claim on the policy is denied either partially or wholly, the date of the such denial. On policy of insurance when the sum of insured is payable after proof of the loss of the has been given to or received by the insured 3 years. The date of the occurrence of causing the loss where the claim the policy is denied either partially or wholly, date of such denial. Next, period of description of suits by the assured recovered period Permia paid under a policy boy devil at the election of the insurers 3 years when the insurers elect the void the policy. Next, under the Indian Succession Act 1925 or 39 or 25, Section 360 or Section 361 is a compel or refund by the person to whom an executor or administrator has paid a legacy of distributed assets 3 years, the date of the payment of the distributor, for money paid upon the exciting consideration which the afterwards fails, 3 years, the date of the failures. Next, for the contribution by a party who has paid the whole or more than his shares of the amount due under a joint degree or by the share. sharer in a joint estate has who has paid the whole more than his shares, the amount revenue due from the himself and his co-shares, 3 years, the date of the payment is the excess of the plaintiff for shares. Next, by the co-trustee to enforce against the state of the decrease trustee claim, 3 years, when the right of the by the manager of joint estate of undivided family or constitution is respect of the payment of made by the him or account of estate is a time of period 3 years date of payment for the profit of immovable property belonging to the plaintiff which have been wrongfully received by the defendant period of time 3 years when the profits or receipts for arrears of rents for arrear of rent 3 years when the arrears becomes due. Next, by a vendor immovable property person's money 3 years when started the time fixed for completing the sales or where title is accepted after the time of fixed for the completions the date of acceptance. Section next 54 for specific performance for the contract 3 years. The date fixed for the performance or if the no such date is fixed when the plaintiff has noticed that performance refused. Next for compensation for the breach of any contract express or implied not herein specially provided for. Time a period 3 years when the contract is broken where there are successive breaches when the breach is respect of which the suit is instituted occur of when the breach is continue when it is ceases. Next part 3 suits of relating declarations. The declare of the foreign of any instrument issues of registered 3 years time periods when the issue or registered becomes known the plaintiff. Next, to obtain a declaration then an alleged adoption is invalid or never in fact took place, time of period 3 years when the alleged adoption becomes known to the plaintiff. Next, to obtain any other declaration, 3 year time periods when the right to sue first occurs. Next, we are going to part 4 suits relating to the decrees and instrument to cancel or set aside instrument or decree or for the rescission of the contract time period is 3 years when the facts entitling the plaintiff to have the instrument or decrees cancelled or set aside the contract resigned first became known to him. Next, to set aside transfer of property made by the guardian of the ward. Next, by the ward who has attained majority 3 years when the ward attains majority. Next, by the ward's legal representatives by the ward's legal representative 3 years when the wards attained majority. Next, when the ward dies within the 3 years from the date of the attaining majority 3 years when the wards attain majority. When the ward dies before the attaining majority 3 years time period when the ward dies. Next, part 5 suits relating to immovable property by a mortgager to a redeem or recover possession of immovable property mortgage. Time of period 3 years when start when the right to redeem or to recover possession occurs. Seconds, to recover possession of the immovable property mortgage and afterwards transferred by the mortgage for a valuable Consent, con- considerations 12 years is the most important to recover possession of the mobile property mortgage and afterwards by the mortgage to 12 years when the transfer become known to the plaintiff. Next, to recover surplus collections received by the mortgage after the mortgage has been satisfied 3 years when the mortgage re-enters on the mortgage property. Next, to enforce payment of money secured by the mortgage or the otherwise charged upon the immovable property, the time of period 12 years when the money sent before become due. Next, by the mortgage for foreclosure 30 years. Third, by mortgage for foreclosure 30 years when the money secured by the mortgage become due. नेक्स्ट चलते हैं फॉर पोजीशन ऑफ इमूवेबल प्रॉपर्टी मॉर्गेज 12 years when the mortgage becomes entitled of positions. Next, for the position of a immovable property based on the previous position and not a title when the plaintiff while on position of the property has been deposed 12 years the date of depositions. Next, for position of the immovable property of an interest therein based time period of 12 years when the position of the defendants becomes adverse the plaintiff. Explanation for the purpose of the article where the suit is by the remaindermen or reversioner other than the landlord or the devisee, the position of the defendant shall be deemed to become adverse only when the estate or the revendermen's revisioners or advice or as the case as may be fills into the position. When the suit by the Hindu or Muslim entitled to the position of the immovable property on the death of the Hindu or Muslim female, the position of the defendant shall be deemed to become adverse only when the female dies. Next, where the suit is by a purchaser at the sale execution of the degree when the judgment debater was out of position at the date of the suit share, the purchaser shall be the deemed to be a representative or the judgment debater who was out of position. Is 12 years. Next, for possession of immovable property when the plaintiff has become entitled of possession by the reason of any fortuner uh, for features or breach of conditions 12 years when the for feature is incurred for the condition of broken by a landlord recover possession of form of tenant 12 years when the tenancy is determined. Next part fifth suit relating to the movable property. For a specific movable property lost or acquired by the theft, dishonest misappropriation of conversion 3 years when the person having the right of the possession of the property first learns involves possession it. Next, for the specific movable property 3 years when the property is a wrongful taken. 69 is related to IPC. For the other specific movable property 3 years when the property is wrongful taken. To recover movable property deposit or pawned from the depository Pavni, the 3 years, the date of the refusal after demand. Pavni and Pavd. Next, 71 point. The recover movable property deposit or pawned and afterwards bought from the depository or pawnee for a valuable consideration 3 years when the sale become known to the plaintiff. Next, for the compensation for the doing or for opting to the act alleged to be a pursuance of any attachment in force of the time of being territories to when which is this act extend 1 year when the act omission take place is for compensation for the false imprisonment 1 year when the imprisonment ends for compensation for the malicious prosecutions 1 year 1 year when the plaintiff is acquitted or the prosecution is otherwise terminated for the compensation for libel 1 year when the libel is published. Next, for compensation for slander 1 year when the words are spoken of the words are not actionable themselves when the special damage complaint or result for compensation for the loss of service occasioned by the selections of the plaintiff servant or the debtor 1 year when the loss occurs for the compensation for the including person break or contract with the plaintiff 1 year limitation time when start the date of breach of. Next, for the compensation for the illegal irregular excessive distress 1 year time the date of the distress. Next, for the compensation for the wrongful seizures of the immovable property under legal process, 1 year, the date of the seizures. Next, by the executor, administration, or the representative under the legal representative suits 8085, 1 year, the date of the death of the persons wronged. Next, by the executors, 82, by the executor, administration, representative under the Indian Fatal Accidents Act 85 50 80 55, 13 of 80 55, 2 years, the date of the death of the person killed under the legal. This is a accidental claims is a called 2 years time period. Under the Legal Representative Suits Act 8055 1285 against an accuser and administrator or any other representative, 2 years when the wrong complaint is done. Next, against one who having right to the use property or the specific purpose free perverts into the other purpose, 2 years. 2 years when the provisions first becomes know of the person injured thereby. Next, for the compensation for the obstructing of way or water occurs, 3 years, the date of obstructions. For compensation for the diverting the water course, 3 years, the date of diversions. For the compensation of trespass upon the immovable property, 3 years, the date of trespass. For compensation for the infringing copyright or any other exclusive privilege, 3 years, date of the infringement. For compensation for the infringing to infringing copyright of another, 3 years, the date of infringement. To restrain waste, 3 years, when the waste begins. For the compensation for injury caused by any injunction wrongful obtained, 3 years, when the injunction ceases. For the compensation for the wrongfully detaining any specific movable property lost or acquired by the theft or dishonest misappropriations conversion, 3 years, when the person having the right to the possession possession of the property first learns use possessional. Next, for wrongfully taking, injuring, wrongfully detaining any other specific movable property, 3 years, when the property is wrongfully taken or injured or when the detainer possession becomes unlawful. Next part 8. Suits relating to trust or trust property. 92. To recover possession of the immovable property conveyed by the bequeathed in trust and afterwards transferred by the trust for valuable consideration 12 years when the transfer becomes known the plaintiff. Next, to recover possession of the movable property conveyed or bequeathed in trust on afterwards transferred by the trustee for the valuable consideration, 3 years, when the transfer becomes known to the plaintiff, then it starts. Next, 94, to set aside a transfer of movable property comprised in the Hindu, Muslim, or Buddhist religions or charitable endowment made by the manager thereof for a valuable consideration 12 years when the transfer becomes known the plaintiff. 92, 95 point, to set aside transfer of movable property comprised in Hindu, Muslim, or Buddhist religious or charitable endowment made by the manager thereof for a valuable consideration 3 years when the transfer became the known the plaintiff. Next, by the manager of Hindu, Muslim, or Buddhist religious or charitable endowment to recover possession of movable property comprised in the endowment which has been transferred by the previous manager for the valuable consideration 12 years. The date of death is resignations of removals of the transfer of the date of appointment of the plaintiff as the manager of the endowment, whichever is later. Next, suit relating part 9, suit relating miscellaneous matters. To enforce a right of preemptions where the right of the founded in the law or general uses or special contract 1 year when the purchaser to take under the sale sought to be impeached. physical possession of the whole or part or property sold, or where the subject matter of the sale does not admit of physical possession of the whole or part of property when the instrument sale is registered at start. Next, 98, by the person against whom on order referred in Rule 63, Rule 63, Rule 63 or Rule 103 or Order 21 of the Code of Civil Procedure Code 9008 5 of 908 or Order under Section 28 of the Presidency Small Cause Courts Act 8082 15 of 8082 has been made to establish to right with the claims to the property comprised in the order. 1 year, the date of final order. 92, 99, to set aside a seal by a civil or revenue court or sale for the arrears of the government revenue or for any demand of recoverable or such arrears. 1 year is when the sale is confirmed or would otherwise have become final or conclusive had no such suit have brought. Next, to alter or set aside any decisions or order civil courts in any proceeding other than a suit or any act of order of an officer of governmental in his official capacity. 1 year, the date of final decision or order by the court of the date of the act of order of officer as the case may be. Next, 101, upon a judgment including a foreign judgment or other recognized 3 years, the date of judgment or recognized. 102, for property which the plaintiff has conveyed while insane. For property which the plaintiff has conveyed while insane, 3 years, when the plaintiff is restored to sanity and has knowledge of the convenience. Next, 103, to make a good out the general estate of the deceased trustee the loss occasioned by the breach of trust. 3 years, the date of the trustee death of or if the loss has not the resulted the date of loss. Next, to establish of predically recurring right. 3 years, when the plaintiff is first refused the enjoyment of the right. Next, by the Hindu for areas of maintenance for the legacy or for shares of the residuary bequeathed by a testator or distributive share of the property of intestate against a executor or administrator or some other person legally charged with the duty of distributing the estate. 12 years, when the legacy or share becomes payable deliverable. Next, for the position of hereditary office. 12 year, when the defendant takes possession of the office adversely to plaintiff. Explanation: hereditary office is possessed when the properties thereof are usually received or if there are no property when the duties thereof are usually performed. This is important. The suit during life of Hindu or the Muslim females by the Hindu or Muslim whose the female died at the date of instituting the suit would be entitled to the possession of the land to have attention to such land made by the female declared to be void except for the life or until her remarriage. Is a time of period 12 years, the date of alternation. Next, by the Hindu, by a Hindu governed by the Mitakshara law to set aside his father alienation of the ancestral property 12 years when the alienee takes possession of the property. Next, by a person excluded from the joint family property or enforced to right to share therein. 12 years, when the exclusions become known to the plaintiff. Next, be on behalf of any local authority for possession of any public street or road or any part of thereof from which it is has been disposed or which it is has discontinued to the possession. 30 year, the date of the disposition of discontinues. Next, any suit except a suit before the Supreme Court is the exercise of its original jurisdiction by an behalf of the central government or any state government, including the government state of the Jammu and Kashmir. 30 years. When the period of limitation would be begun to underrun against it take like suit by the private person. Part 10. Suits for the which there is no prescribed period. Any suit which no prescribed limitation is period elsewhere there 3 years when the right is to accrues. Is important. It comes every exams most of them 3 years when the right to accrues. Section divisions, second divisions, appeals from order of acquittal under subsection 1 or subsection 2 or section 1417 the Code of Criminal Procedure Code 19 days. The date of the order appealed is a CRPC. Under subsection of 3 of section 417 the code 30 days. Under subsection 3 of sections 474 and subsection of 2 1 or subsection 2 1 1 1 or 2 subsection 417 is a 19 days and subsection 3 of 417 is a 30 days. You should be remember this the date of the grant especially. Okay, next under the Code of Criminal Procedure Code 18, Code of Criminal Procedure Code of 1898, the from a sentence of death passed by the court session or by a high court in the exercise of its original criminal jurisdictions, 30 days. The date of sentence from the here limitation time period 30 days and date of sentence. Next, from any other sentence or not being a order acquittal, not being order acquittal to high court, any other court 16 days to date of sentence or order, or at any other courts 30 days the date of sentence or order. Under Code of Civil Procedure Code 908 to High Court from any degree order 90 days to date of degree order to any other code of other 30 days the date of the degree or order. From a degree or order any high court the same court 30 days the date of degree or order. Third division applications. Part 1 application on specified cases. For leave to appeal and defendant suit under summary procedure 10 days when the summons is served. For leave to appear and defend and suit under summary 10 days when the summons is served. Under Arbitration Act 1940 10 of 1940 for the filling of the quote and award 30 days the take service of the notice of the making of the award. Next, for setting aside of a award, getting a award, remained reconsideration 30 days, the date of the service of the notice of the filling award. Next, under the Code of Civil Procedure 908, 5/908, to have the legal representatives or deceased or plaintiff appealed of or deceased defendant or report respondent made of party 90 days. The date of the death of plaintiff, appellant, defendant, respondent, and as the case may be. Next, 122, 121 under the same code of order set aside amendment 60 days, the date of amendment. Next, to restore or suit or appeal or application for review or revision, dismiss or for default or of appearance or for want of prosecution or for failure to pay cost of service of process or furnish security cost 30 days, the date of dismissal. Next, round 123 to set aside decree passed ex parte or to re-hear an appeal decreed or heard ex parte 30 days. The date of when start the date of the decree where the summons or notice was not duly served when the appellant had knowledge of the decree. Explanation for the purpose of this article substitute service under Rule 20 of Order 5 or Code of Civil Procedure 908 5 of 908 shall not be deemed to be due service. Okay. Next 124 for a review or judgment of the court other than Supreme Court 30 days the date of the degrees or order. Next 125 to record and judgment or the satisfactions or degree, record and judgment of satisfaction 30 days when the payment or judgment is made. Next, for the payment of the amount of degree or installment, 30 days, the rate of the degree. Next, to set aside a sale and execution of degree including any such application by the judgment or debitor, or for possession of the possession by the disposed of immovable property and disputing the right of decrees holder or purchaser at a sale in the execution of decree 30 days time of limitation period, the time of dispositions when it starts when it start from the disposition. Next, for the position after removing, for the position of the after removing, for position after removing, the resistance of obstruction to the delivery position of the immovable property decreased or sold and execution of the degree 30 days. The date of resistance of obstructions. Next, for leave to appeal or as a pauper to High Court to another court. To leave to appeal as pauper 60 days and 30 days. Date of decree appeals, date of decree appealed. Next, to code of the exercise of its power of revision under the Code of Civil Procedure 9055 of 908 or the Code of Criminal Procedure Code 90 days. The date of decree, order or sentence sought to be revised. Next, 132, to the High Court, to the High Court of Court of or Certificate Fitness, Supreme Court under the causal Supreme Court under the clause 1 article 132 article 133 sub clause C of clause 1 of article 134 constitution of under any other laws for the time of being force 60 days, the date of decree, order or sentence. This is important, this is very important because it's come to exam many times. Next, to the Supreme Court for the special leave or appeal in a case of involving death sentence 60 days, the date of judgment, final order or sentence. In case where leave or appeal was refused by the High Court, 60 days, date of order or refusal. For delivery possession by the purchaser of immovable property, sale execution degree 90 days or 1 year, date of this is not in other case 90 days, this is above for not this 1 year when the sale becomes absolute. Next, for the enforcement of degree granting a mandatory injunction 3 years, the date of degree or where a date is fixed by the performance such as date. Next, 36, for the execution of any degree other than a degree granting a mandatory injunction or order of any civil court 12 years when the degree or order becomes enforceable or where the degree or any subsequent order directs any payments of money for the delivery of any property to be made at a certain date or the requiring periods when default in the making the payment of delivery in the respect of which execution is sought take place, provided that an application for the enforcement of the execution of the degree granting of perpetual injunction shall not be subject to any other limitation is called 12 years. Next period, other application, part 2, other application. Any other application for which no period limitation is provided, the other also be there 3 years when the right to apply occurs. Next, this is the 137 point. 137 point where a limitation period where the limitation period is given period of time. Okay, I told you everything in the two lectures. Next lecture I will discuss next law. Okay, take care. If you are new और आप इस पे चैनल पर नए हैं तो चैनल को सब्सक्राइब कर लें. इफ़ यू आर न्यू इन दिस चैनल्स ऑन दिस चैनल्स यू शुड सब्सक्राइब माय चैनल एंड press the bell icon. Okay, nice to meet you. See you tomorrow. Bye.